Hello, everyone. This is James Song here. Today, we are covering another listening session. It's a lecture passage. So let's listen to it and write notes at the same time. And then let's tackle some questions in this lecture passage. So without further ado, let's get started right away. Here we go.
Listen to part of a lecture in a conservation biology class.
One consequence of global warming is extinction. There's compelling evidence that global warming will be a significant driver of many plant and animal extinctions in this century. So we're considering various strategies to help some threatened species survive this warming trend, which, as you know, is caused mainly by greenhouse gases produced by the burning of fossil fuels. The most radical strategy being debated among conservation biologists is assisted migration. Assisted migration means picking up members of a species or members of a group of interdependent species and physically moving or translocating them. Translocating threatened species to a cooler place, to higher latitudes or higher elevations, for example. Now, migration's a natural survival strategy. Over the past 2 million years, colder glacial periods have alternated with warmer interglacial periods. And so, in response to these gradual climatic swings, some species have shifted their ranges hundreds of kilometers. So perhaps you're wondering, why not let nature take its course now? Well, we can't. The main problem is today's fragmented habitats. During previous interglacial periods, when glaciers retreated, they left behind open land in their wakes. Today, human development has paved over much of the natural world. Ecosystems are fragmented. Housing developments, highways, and cities have replaced or sliced through forests and prairies. There are few corridors left for species to migrate through without help. So conservationists are trying to save as many species as possible. Now, assisted migration could become a viable part of our rescue strategy, but there are a number of uncertainties and risks. Without more research, we can't predict if assisted migration will work for any given species. A translocated species could die out from lack of food, for example. At the other extreme, we might successfully translocate a species, but within 5 or 10 years, that species could proliferate and become an invasive species. Like a non-native plant that chokes out native plants by hogging the nutrients in the soil. Translocated animals can become invasive too. It happened in Australia. The cane toad was introduced back in 1935 to control an insect pest that was destroying Australia's sugarcane plantations. But the cane toad itself became a pest and has destroyed much of the wildlife on that continent. Also, many species are interdependent, intimately connected to one another, like animals that eat a certain plant, and that plant relies on a certain fungus to help it get nutrients from soil, and on a certain insect for pollination. We'd probably have to translocate entire networks of species, and it's hard to know where to draw the line. And in addition to all that, it's not even clear that assisted migration, or any migration for that matter, will help, at least for some species. Earth was already in one of its warm interglacial periods when we started burning fossil fuels. And in the 21st century, global temperatures are expected to rise 2 to 6 degrees. That rate of heating's far greater than during the last glacial retreat some 12,000 years ago. Whether to use assisted migration? This debate is mostly within the biology community right now, but the ultimate decision makers, in the United States at least, will be the government agencies that manage natural resources. Assisted migration really needs this level of oversight, and soon. Currently, there's no public policy on using assisted migration to help species survive climate change. People aren't even required to seek permits to move plants or invertebrate animals around as long as they're not classified as pests. In one case, a group of conservationists has already taken it upon itself to try on their own to save an endangered tree, the Florida toria tree, through assisted migration. There's only about 1,000 individual Florida torias left, and global warming is expected to significantly reduce or eliminate this tree's habitat. So this conservation group wants to translocate seedlings, Florida Toria seedlings, 500 kilometers north, in order to expand the species range. The group believes that its effort is justified. But I and many other biologists will be watching very closely how this maverick group makes out because, like I said, there could be unintended consequences.
Okay, so how much did you get it? Did you get it all? You pretty confident? I am reasonably confident. I think I can cover the whole passage for you, with you, by explaining what I have written down in my notes. Okay, so let's go. So global warming is, dangerous. It may make plant and animal species extinct. It may like kill the whole different types of species, global warming. So, we're looking for strategies. I paraphrase right there, okay? So we're looking for different ways to help these species survive in this global warming era that we live in right now, okay? So global warming caused by greenhouse gas, by burning fossil fuel. So one of the radical way, extreme way, strategies to help survive these species is assisted migration. So human helping these species to move, okay? So this is the main topic of the whole passage, okay? So it starts by defining what assisted migration is. So assisted migration means physically moving species to help them survive, right? Translocating, okay? So relocating or changing their location to elsewhere, for example, like cooler places or whatever, higher elevated places to better places so they can live, right? However, migration happens naturally, right? We don't have to assist. Okay, birds naturally, migrate millions of kilometers. I'm not sure millions exactly, thousands of kilometers annually, right? So, the salmon and all these different species and animals. So migration happens actually naturally. We don't have to assist, right? It happens naturally. And we have some cold and some warm periods naturally. So why let nature take its toll? That's what Professor said. It's one of the phrase that English speakers use quite often. Why just let the nature take its course, right? Which means I just paraphrased immediately so I can write it quickly and just keep the same meaning and I won't forget. So I written it down. Why just leave it? Meaning, why just let animals and plants migrate naturally by themselves? Why do we forcefully assist their migration? Which is really good question, right? Why do we step in? We can just leave it. It will happen naturally anyway, over thousands of years maybe, or even shorter. But Professor clearly says it can't be done this way. We cannot just leave it because habitat for these species, plants and animals, are already fragmented. Fragmented means destroyed or broken. It's broken. right? Okay. So human development fragmented the habitat of these species. So we cannot just leave them, let them migrate by themselves, the species, plants and animals, because the humans' development destroyed their habitat. So they are going to die with this global warming because we destroy their habitat. So ecosystem is also fragmented, destroyed by human development. I didn't bother writing down, freeways, houses, and they built things and they destroyed forests, and you know what happened, okay? Right? So we can't just leave it. We have to help them. That's what Professor is saying, because the species habitat is destroyed by humans' development. Okay? So conservationist, so a group of people, expert who wants to conserve the nature and help this species survive, think we should help species. So that's where assisted migration comes in, I guess. Okay, but quite an important sentence, this one section, this one. Okay, because let's do it. Let's do assisted migration. Let's get a bunch of species that are in danger, and let's move them somewhere else. Problem solved, right? No, not quite. Because, however, there are some uncertainties, unintended consequences, uncertainty. Not everything's clear. We don't understand everything. We don't know what's going to happen. And there are some risks. Okay, it's dangerous. Whether assisted migration will actually work or not. Okay, so let's find out what kind of uncertainties, possible danger, and risks are involved in doing assisted migration. Okay, so after relocating them, migrating them physically, some species could die, so it may not work out for them at all. Or something exactly opposite may happen. Species proliferate so much. Proliferate means their population increase a lot, okay? So it works out too well for them, and their population increase so much, they may break the ecosystem of that new habitat by becoming invasive species. For example, if it's plant, you could actually kill all the native plants, wipe out the native plants to destroy the ecosystem. Or another example, for the animal, cane toad in Australia were put in, migrated physically to where there was some kind of a pest in sugarcane. So cane toad were put in as a solutions to kill these pests, right? Type of assisted migration in this context. But the outcome was just like this plant. The cane toad proliferates so much, I guess, they actually became the pest, okay? They were put in to get rid of the pest, but cane toad actually became the pest and destroyed everything. Okay, so there's a problem. And another uncertainty or problem, so that's first and second, or 1-1, 1-2, okay, the problems. And second or third problem, if you count this 1, 2, species are interdependent to other species. For example, one species cannot and does not live by itself, right? Okay, so if you have a species, if you have an animal, if you have a plant, you need other plant or other animals and other conditions, other living organisms that species need to survive. They all rely on each other, rely on one another. That's what interdependent means. So for example, if you're moving cattle do not live just by themselves. They need plants or grass, if it's grass-fed, to eat, right? So it's an independent species, right? So the plants or grass are interdependent species to cattle in this case. So what do you have to do? Do you move every species? And where do you draw the line? Like, what do you include and what do you not include? Where do you draw the line? Or do you move all of them? And can you actually get all of them and move it? Is it possible? So that's another problem and risk, okay? And another minor potential possibility is assisted migration may not even help some species. May help some species, but may not. They're already in trouble. It's going to be extincted. They're going to die. But even if you move them, it may not be any help to them because it's warm, very warm right now. Not as like a positive tone, like a global warming. It's going to kill, certain species warm, right? So it's dangerous right now. It's 2 to 6 warmer than previous interglacial periods. So that's non-ice age, okay? So compared to 12,000 years ago, we're already 2 to 6 degrees warmer as a temperature. So this is almost like Professor saying, this is almost like an evidence there is a global warming going on, which she mentioned in very first sentence, right? There's a global warming and some plants and animal will be wiped out, will be destroyed, will die forever, be extinct, okay? Disappear as a whole. Yeah, okay. So, on one hand, we can't just watch them die. We have to help them. Because if we just leave them, not move them, their habitats and ecosystems already destroyed, fragmented by us, humans. So we cannot just leave them to die. We have to help them and maybe move them somewhere else. Or do we not do assisted migration because they could die, they could become invasive species. There are so many interdependent species, so what do you do with them? And it may be just waste of time and energy. It will not help them anyway. So we got the both sides of the argument. It's debatable, right? So can we get the conclusion? Do we use assisted migration or not? And the professor jumps to another point. So for example, in US government agency, government department, government, they would be a decision maker for this issue for US, for example. And professor says it requires the assisted migration. It requires this level of oversight, like by, the country's government, okay? So oversight mainly has two meanings, generally, as a vocabulary. So I made an oversight or I oversighted as like a negative connotation, often means, I made a mistake or you know, I kind of made a mistake, or I didn't get that, you know, I skipped it. Okay, that's one meaning. Another meaning is like monitor, supervise. You know, the government has oversight of the whole process, meaning, you know, like control it, looking down, supervise, right? So professor says we need this level, meaning very high level of supervision and control to make assistant migration work. Yeah, I just paused the video for your own good. I just sneezed. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I said that. Anyway, sorry. So, right, moving on. But now, like, if it's not a pest, you don't even need a permit to do assistant migration. So what professor is saying is, professor feels it needs a strong supervision, but right now there's no supervision, or not enough, or it's too easy. It's not supervised, monitored, regulated strictly. You know, there's no rules right now. So she thinks it needs to be tightened. Okay, it needs to be controlled more, because it's an important issue. It's a difficult issue. There are some risks and uncertainty involved. So, you know, more oversight is required to decide to use assisted migration or not. That's professor's answer. So it's kind of gray area. She doesn't say like, yes, we should definitely do it, or we should not. Okay, she answers by, we need like a government level of oversight. We need regulation. Okay. So for example, this one group is trying assisted migration. So it's not a government, it's one group of people, biologists, decided to assisted migrate this type of tree that, you know, only 1,000 trees are left. So they believe they have to move them, otherwise they'll be extinct. Okay, the global warming will kill them even more. Right? So group is very ambitious and moving this seedling to 500 kilometers north. And this group feels this move is justified, but because of uncertainty and risks, right? Other biologists, perhaps, including the professors, are very careful in looking at this situation to monitor what will happen. Okay, a bit nervous, not convinced. Okay, not 100% justified. Other biologists are okay. So let's see what happens, whether this is a right move or not. Okay, I will monitor your decision. That kind of attitude, because she's worried about unintended consequences. So here it refers to unintended negative consequences. Okay. Yeah, so that's the whole passage, and I explained based on my notes. So there you go. So this is how you improve. And note-taking is everything, guys, in TOEFL listening. Think about this. Think about it this way. If you wrote your notes this way, exactly same as me, for example, and achieved a level of understanding of what you heard based on this notes. So whenever you look at the notes, you can bring out this level of information, then how can you get the questions wrong? It's almost like impossible if you wanted to get the question wrong, because you understand the passage inside and out. And because TOEFL listening, the passage is only played once, and they don't let you see the questions while you listen to the passage. They don't, so you don't know the question. Question comes afterwards, so you can only write notes, note-taking is everything. Okay, you have to master the note-taking to be able to get all the questions right. No questions. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at some questions and solve them together. Let's go. Okay, question 6. I blabbed on a bit just before, but I had to because it's really important skills and information that I have to tell you. So rather than you getting bored, I hope you appreciated what I said just before, okay? It's really important. All right, question 6. What is the main purpose of the lecture? Main purpose of the whole lecture. It's almost like a description, introduction, overview of what assisted migration is, right? Pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, what it is of assisted migration, okay? To let us know about it. So let's have a look. A, to explain the government's role in regulating assisted migration. I mean, even if this is it's not true, but even if this was right, this information, it's not answer to the question, because question is asking what is the purpose of the whole lecture, and this was very little minor part of like one small part of the lecture. So A is already wrong, okay? It's not the purpose of the whole passage. Okay, B, to discuss ways in which plants and animals adapt to climate change. It's not about adapting it. The professor think they cannot adapt because it's too warm, too hot, global warming, plus habitat, ecosystem all destroyed by humans. So it's not about adapting to the environment. It's about getting them out, okay? C, to discuss controversial approach. So is this approach assisted migration? Is this controversial? Yeah, okay, because it said one of the radical, meaning very extreme, okay? So one of the most radical strategy, radical way. So it's controversial. And if it's radical, then if it works out, it would be really good. But if it doesn't work out, it may be disastrous, right? So controversial approach can refer to assisted migration, okay? So to discuss advantages and disadvantages, controversial approach, assisted migration to conserving plant and animal species. Exactly. So in order to save this species, plant and animal, that may go extinct, let's discuss whether assisted migration is a good way or not. Okay, all right, let's discuss. Sorry, not B. C, perfect. D, to describe a recently discovered consequences, there is none, of global warming, okay? So are we describing what happened recently, not long ago, due to global warming? Is that what the whole passage is about? No, okay? So question 6, the answer is C. All right, question 7. According to the professor, what problem, so there is a problem, what problem is assisted migration intended trying to overcome? So what is the problem that assisted migration trying to overcome? A, the problem they're trying to overcome is diminishing amount of undeveloped land that species can migrate through. Exactly, right? Developed here means very negative in this context. Like humans developed land, so building highways, buildings, cutting down the forest. So, the fragmenting habitat has happened due to developed land. So undeveloped land are diminishing, reduced the quantity of undeveloped land that species can naturally migrate or live, right? It's being reduced, right? They need more undeveloped land, but they don't have that. It's all developed. It's all fragmented, right? So that's the problem. So they need help and they need to get out because their habitat is developed, meaning already fragmented, okay? So amount of undeveloped land is really diminishing, being reduced, that they can migrate through naturally. So they need to get out of there, otherwise they will die. So A looks pretty good. B, the problem they're trying to overcome is relative lack of nutrients available in cooler latitude. It's so specific that passage does not mention at all. Okay, all right, so it's wrong. C, the increase in alteration between the cool and warmer periods. So the problem they're trying to overcome is alteration, change between cooler and warmer periods. Okay, so some cool, like 10 years, not 10 years, you know, thousands of years, but just to give you an example to help you understand. So let's say the cooler periods were 10 years and warmer periods period was 10 years. And it was changing after 20 years back to cold for 10 years and warm for 10 years. But if you choose C, you're trying to say assisted migration is trying to overcome increase in alteration. So they want cooler period, like in one period for a longer period of time, perhaps. And then when it changed to warm period, they also want that for longer, okay? So increase in alteration, change between cooler and warmer periods. This is a problem, so they want to get out. They want to do assisted migration, okay? Nonsense, right? It doesn't even say, right? Only thing it says is compared to last warm period, current warm period that we live right now, it's a lot warmer. It's a problem. That's all the information the passage provide. Only information passage provide. Right here. Right? So it has nothing to do with C. Okay, D, competition from other species in certain native habitats. So they are doing, we want to do assisted migration of these species because the problem is there are too much competition from other species in this native land. So, you know, humans should assist migration of these species. Not at all. Never mentioned. Okay. So answer is clearly A. And the answer comes from this part. Why can't we just leave them to migrate by themselves? We can't, because the land they can migrate through naturally by themselves, it's already destroyed. It's already fragmented. So, you know, that's the problem. So the answer, question 7, is A. Okay, question 8, let's go. What point does the professor make? So professor makes a point when she discussed the cane toad. Yeah, this is an easy question. It's a very clear answer, should be. So when she talks about unintended consequences, uncertainty and risks, cane toad is example of species proliferate so much, their numbers increase so much, their population increase so much after migration that they actually become invasive species to hurt the habitat, okay, hurt the ecosystem, hurt the native species, right? Cane toad is example of that because cane toad was put into control pest, but they became the pest itself and destroyed other species. Okay, let's look at the answer choice. A, translocated species sometimes die out. No, they do not die out. They became invasive species. B, translocated species may spread too quickly in their new environment. Maybe. Okay, it doesn't include and becomes invasive or negative to the environment. That's omitted. It's not included. But up to this part, it's correct, right? They became invasive species means they proliferate so much, okay? So much cane toads, okay, in numbers. Several techniques are available to achieve the cane toad in Australia is not an example that talks about there are several techniques, different techniques. No. D, animal species are often easier to relocate than plants. So is it talking about cane toad compared to certain plant species and says cane toad is an animal species, not plant, and animal species such as cane toad is easier to move? No, not at all. So very clear this one. The answer is B. Okay, so question 8, the answer is B. Okay, moving right along, question 9. Let's look at it. What does professor imply? Inference question. When she mentions translocating networking of species. So networking of species, I think it means the interdependent species, right? And the problem was, if we look at the notes or if we remember, where is it? Okay, here. That there are many interdependent species that rely on each other, and we don't know exactly how many of them. Like there may be many and many more interdependent species of one species to survive. And if there are so many of them, how many of these interdependent species we need to move? Like all of them? And we don't even know what's all of them. It may be more than we think, and we move them, and we may not move some interdependent species. And second, so do we move all of them? Where do we draw the line? How many species we move? And which species we move and which species we do not move? How do we make the decision? That's a second point. Okay? So let's look at A. A, there are aspects of interdependency that are unknown. Yeah, maybe, right? So we may not know absolutely all interdependent species to this one species. Okay, we may not know all of them. So A looks pretty strong. B, some species evolve in ways that help them survive in new habitat. It's not many. Okay, if you chose B, you're saying some interdependent species evolve, adapted, changed in the way to help other interdependent species if they are moved together. Okay? Okay, nothing mentioned this way. Right, C, it is difficult to know how far to move a network of species. This is wrong because it's talking about the distance. Okay, the passage is talking about two things. We may not know all interdependent species, and which species do we select then? Okay, which species need to be moved? But C is talking about how far to move them in terms of distance. So C is wrong. D, many assisted migration plans should involve the translocation of just one species. This is exactly opposite of what the passage is saying. Okay, so if you chose B, if you chose D, I'm sorry, it's saying like you should only move one species. Okay, don't move any other network of species or interdependent species. Just move this one, the main one only. You are saying that if you chose D. So it's absolutely wrong, right? So the better answer and the best answer to question 9 is A. And B, C, D are actually absolutely wrong, okay, or not mentioned. So it's easy answer at the end. English was a little tricky, but clearly the answer is A. So question 9, the answer is A. Okay, next question, question 10. What does the professor imply, inference question again, about the government's role in regulating assisted migration in the United States? Maybe not enough, need to do more, need strong or stronger regulation, supervision. Okay. So let's look at the answer choices and try to figure them out and find the answer from the notes. The government should continue to encourage, it's not to encourage, it's not, the professor is not saying government should say, okay, do assisted migration, or government to say, no, don't do assisted migration. The professor is not saying that. Professor is saying for US, you know, this is something very heavy. This is something very controversial, radical. So US government is and should be the decision maker to whether allow assisted migration or not. And this level of control is really needed. Okay, and the next sentence and the example implies we don't have a very strict, strong regulation. Okay, so A is totally irrelevant and not mentioned. Okay, B, the government has created policy that have proven unhelpful. They don't talk about the policy. Like, we don't know what is their policy exactly. So it's not only irrelevant, this is never stated in the passage. Okay, we don't know. Like, what policy are you talking about? I want to know. C, the government should follow the example set by other countries. I wish I could choose C, but it's not mentioned at all. Okay, so hopefully D is a clear answer. The government needs to increase its involvement in the issue. Yeah. Okay. So definitely this sentence, but this next sentence. Okay. However, at the moment now, there is not even a permit required if the species are not assisted. If the species want to be migrated by people, like to do assisted migration, right? The group does not even need a permit if the species are not the pest, okay? They can just do whatever they want, right? So this sentence, but also this sentence implies that the government needs to have a stronger control of this issue. The issue is assisted migration. Question 10, the answer is D. Question 11, last question of this particular lecture passage. what is a professor's attitude towards the effort to save the Florida Torreya? So last part, okay. Professor says not overly positive or negative, like professor saying, okay, let's see. Let's see whether this group is doing the right thing. Let's see whether this assisted migration works out well, because it needs to be careful, right? Because it has unintended consequences, right? So let's see. Okay, let's carefully observe what happens. Okay. All right, she's glad. I think this is a bit too extreme. I don't think she's glad or upset. Okay, she's just saying, okay, let's be careful. Let's monitor this. She's glad that some conservationists are willing to take a chance on assist. Definitely not. She's not overjoyed like this group is doing this. Okay, all right. Professor is saying, okay, let's see. All right, B, she is concerned. Maybe not concerned. Is she concerned? Possibly, because she says, let's see, because there is a possible negative consequences that you did not intend. Okay, you did not intend. So concern, yeah, possibly, right? Okay. So she's concerned because, so this part becomes a lot more important. It may have unintended consequences here. Okay. She's like, let's be careful. Let's really observe, because it may not work out. Right? So B looks pretty strong, but let's double check C and D. C, she is surprised because other species are more in danger. C is definitely wrong, because if you choose C, you're saying that professor is surprised. Wow, this tree? Because we should assist it migrate this other species. That's what C is saying. So C is wrong. D, she expects the effort will have to be repeated several times before it succeeds. So it's totally made up. So if you chose D, you are saying that professor feels this is the first time, but to save this tree, save this Florida Torreya tree, you need to do assisted migration maybe 4 times in next 5 years, and then you may become successful. Okay, no, definitely not, right? I didn't hear that. Okay, so only viable answer is C. B. I'm circling B and I'm saying C. I don't know. Maybe I'm tired or whatever. Okay, sorry. So the only possible answer for question 11 is clearly B. Question 11, the correct answer is B. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching. And that's the end of this particular listening passage. Okay, I really appreciate you watching this video and learning from me. And bye for now. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.